Okay, I'm ready.
These, these are all recording, so
Yeah. Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, and the incredibly talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glanz. We're afraid Dustin couldn't make it this week, but he will be back with us next time, we promise. This week we discuss sharing your creative work, the inherent fears of putting your work out there, tips to overcome this, and the massive benefits that can come from sharing your creativity with the world. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Today I'm with the lovely Lisa Glanz and important Ian Barnard. Couldn't think of another alliterative word.
I thought you'd forgotten my name for a minute.
Yeah, and what's your name, mate? And we're without Dustin. I feel like the summer months are really playing out at the minute with everyone taking holidays. I say, how dare everyone take a week off,
Have a
even though
rest.
I've just got back from Italy. But yeah, this week we are going to be digging into sharing as a designer, whether this is sharing your work with the world, whether this is sharing your techniques. I think it's an important topic to discuss because it can be a really positive, really powerful thing. But a lot of designers and creatives in general seem to have a certain reticence when it comes to sharing, right? They hold back. It doesn't always come naturally. So why do we think that is? Why do people hold back from sharing their work?
Well, I think there's a lot of fear attached to that. There's fear of judgment. There's fear of people ripping you off. There's especially if you're sharing something that hasn't kind of that you're still working on, it's still in process. There could be fear that someone's just going to take that idea and rip it off before you even get a chance to get it out there properly. And then there's that whole fear of sharing your process. You think before you know it, a whole lot of people are running around doing exactly what you do. I think the biggest thing is fear.
You could say the only thing to fear is fear itself.
Exactly. Which is scary.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been there. Can we dig a bit deeper actually into that fear? Because I think you're spot on. But how does that fear actually feel when you're in it? I personally think it makes you illogical and kind of crazy,
Wow.
right? And strung out. So I know when I've been in that position, something which really isn't a big deal at all. It's like putting your work out on a website or sharing it on a forum, for example. It's like when you feel insecure about your appearance, no one else is going to care as much as you do.
It's so true.
The same thing happens with your design work.
Yeah.
And you're there like umming and ahhing and deliberating and catastrophizing in your mind what's the worst case scenario and the feedback that could happen. And then you put it out, and actually the worst thing that could happen is no one bats an eyelid and pays it any attention.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's just
Or everyone's
crickets.
like, yeah, it's all right.
Horrible.
Crickets
No,
are horrible, but it's not as bad as what happens in your head. Where it's like, they're
absolutely.
going to hate me and call me a faker or whatever.
No, I mean, the internal battles, I mean, I'm sure everybody goes through the same kind of things, probably some more than others. But yeah, the internal battles that I've had have been horrendous. And you just assume that people are going to laugh at you or think that, why do you even call yourself an illustrator? You can't even draw. I mean, it's as you said, it's just ridiculous things that go through your mind. And at the end of the day, I mean, when everything's kind of taken away and stripped back, no one really cares.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think
Nobody else really cares.
that sounds on
So,
one hand depressing, but on the other hand, it's quite
Yeah.
grounding. It's like
yeah, it's liberating
actually,
in a way.
no one no one's that fussed by you as you
No one
think
gives
they
a
are.
damn. Yeah.
The thing is, there's a quote by Jim Carrey just saying, if you get to a level where you don't care what people think, obviously the caring. There is a care, if you insult people, that's
Yeah.
you care. But in terms of, you're not caring about what people think of, like the way you do your hair and the stuff like that, then it gives you an immense sense of freedom. And I think for a designer, having a freedom to do what we like doing, to be who we are and inject our own personality in our work, is something that really is really important, because we spend so much energy, and I spend so much energy thinking, it comes down to our anxiety of, wanting to please people. So,
Yeah.
it's like me, I need to restart my YouTube channel after being off for like 2-3 months because of building the studio. And I'm just like, I'm going to do one where I just show the internals of my studio. And I'm like, well, where do you want to watch it? Is there any point? No one is going to watch it, and then you go down like this rabbit hole of just everything. Well, they just think it's rubbish and it's messy at the moment. And who's going to want to look at that?
Meantime, everybody does.
Yeah. And so, and trying to get out of that is so much energy put into that worry could be devoted to, building an audience or putting more work out there or doing new projects, making products, doing videos and stuff like that. And anyway, you just look at, those who have succeeded, those who are able to take that leap and just like, okay, I'm going to do it, even though I really fear that no one's going to like it, or like you say, no one's going to interact with it and stuff like that. But I'm just going to keep playing at it, not worrying. I'm worrying, but I'm just going to overcome that worry.
It's like taking the leap, right?
Yeah, taking it. The thing is, that leap isn't just a one-off thing. It's every time.
It's every time, yeah.
And it does get easier because sometimes it gets easier, but I find it sort of ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's easier. I'm in a good creative place and I'm happy with my work, and then sometimes I'm like, I feels like I can't draw a letter properly, or everything I look at, it just looks terrible. And so I built this studio, and I just can't. It feels like I can't even draw a letter properly. So I've got all this space when and it's those, it's those irrational thoughts that pop into your head when, and maybe like when you're tired and, just there's some outside stresses going on and stuff like that. And so it's such a mind game. It's just, sometimes I feel like I just need to get out of my head.
Yeah.
And just do, just get into that action of just doing, and creating and posting.
That's such a ongoing theme of the show, that just doing, not holding back, being unfiltered, being authentic. And I can't stop thinking about this in business and design and life. I swear it's the key.
It is the key.
To not fit someone else's agenda, and just to have almost no filter. Obviously, it's good to have a filter in life, like to have manners and stuff like that. But I think with your art, look at some of the most impactful artists of the last generation or the last few centuries or whatever. You don't feel like they're overthinking it. You feel like it's just pouring out of them and they're not holding back at all. It's just raw, like, emotion and artistic expression. And I think that's such a golden place to aspire to get to as a designer or any kind of creative. But it's so damn difficult.
It is difficult.
It really, like, I get the same on my silly little Instagram. And I was going to say, in terms of sharing, I do think practice, like with so many things, is the key, right? I know I freaked out sharing early design work. I freaked out sharing videos of myself talking. And it does get easier. Like, now I can do them and I'm really not that fussed at all. And the more you do it, that's fine. But
I wish I was there.
Just practice. Do a video every day for 100 days. You'll be fine. So it definitely gets easier. But what I still struggle with is losing that filter. And
constantly editing yourself before you say something.
It's so scary. Like, imagine publicly saying exactly what was on your mind at any point. It'll be like that movie, The Invention of Lying, by Ricky Gervais, where everyone's saying like horrendous things to each other because in society no one can tell a lie, right? It's the same kind of thing, but with your content and your brand and your art. Imagine just being like, you know what? Like, I feel like if Ian wanted to like write a rude word, I know he wouldn't because he's very charming, polite guy. Or just, Lisa, you drew whatever the hell you wanted, even if it didn't necessarily fit your brand.
Yeah.
And just doing that without holding back at all. It's so freeing. And for me, that's like the epitome of sharing, right? It's so freeing and it's going to make your work better, because I feel like any kind of reticence and any kind of overthinking or holding back is only going to limit your creativity.
Of course. I actually kind of gave this serious thought before I started doing illustration work full time. I couldn't understand what was holding me back, because the sharing part was a huge part of it. It actually probably was one of the things stopping me from doing it. And okay, this sounds a little like more kind of left field, but I kind of try to like analyze what it is that stops people from sharing. And I guess the main thing is the rejection. And if you're rejected by your society, there's that lizard brain that goes, am I going to survive on my own? And if I get rejected, I might die. I know that sounds extreme, but I think that's probably what kicks in to, in our brains when we're having this anxiety and when we get irrational and we think, oh my God, the worst is going to happen. But in actual fact, it's just a piece of art and you're not going to die if you put it out there. But
do you mean in
sometimes it
terms
feels
of
that
like
way.
evolution? Like that.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we came from tribes, so if we get rejected, we're going to be out in the cold, and everyone else is going to.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that part of us still exists, and I almost think it's kind of like a built-in protection, to belong to a group so that you can survive. So that's probably why we have this thing of like, if I show somebody else or people that I'm different or this is really me, what if they don't like me? What if they reject me? And then where am I going to be? Where does that leave me? Which is, it's ultimately it's not true, but I think it's battling through that. And I think what you were saying earlier on, Tom, it's about that letting go. And if you don't actually, if you don't allow yourself to think too hard about it, and you just do it anyway, and before you can actually even analyze it, I think it gets easier. So it's almost like you have to catch yourself before you actually think, and just put it out there.
Is there a name for the thing where you do something uncomfortable and that's what gets you over? It's not like aversion therapy or something, is it? But
I don't know. More like electric shock.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what I mean, where you'll do something scary and the other side of fear lies confidence, basically.
Yes, like if you're scared of spiders, you go and kiss one kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a horrible example because I hate spiders.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
I'll teach you.
I don't know if you ever see these like crappy, oh God, no. These crappy meme posts on Instagram where they have like multiple images in an album and you scroll through and you're like, they're all silly, and it'll be like, how many cubes do you see and all this nonsense. That's the kind of stuff I get sucked into in like my Discover section. And you get to the final one, and it's this horrendous image, which has been like burned into my eye sockets now, of the biggest spider you've ever seen with a swarm of baby spiders sat in like the top corner of a room. And it says, like this image, otherwise this will be in your room tonight.
And I bet you like it.
No, I didn't like it. I just instantly, as soon as it appears, like a split second later, I like throw my phone away and like scroll past it. I'm like, but it just sears into my mind.
Have you seen? Sorry, this is completely off topic. Have you seen those videos where someone's like trying to catch a spider, and they go and catch it, and then it goes onto the.
Yeah, they grab it and they think it's under a cup, and then they turn their head and it's on the side of their face, kind of thing.
No,
Is that what you mean?
This one comes towards your screen, so they go to grab it, and I don't think it's real.
Yeah,
I think it's real. They superimposed it, but it comes on it, so it's like like that, and there's like a southern spider on your camera or on your screen.
Legitimately like shivered as you said that.
I was thinking it.
I can see that, Tom. Oh my hat! You really are scared. Wow. Okay. Well, now I know a little secret. Well, not so secret.
Expect some in the post then.
So yeah, I've kind of just written written a couple of notes as we've gone here. But I think Lisa, kind of what you're saying is that if you're conforming because of this evolutionary tribe mentality or whatever it might be, you're essentially going to be blending in. You're not going to stand out in any kind of way. So ironically, our own innate human nature is teaching us not to stand out and to be worse designers.
Yep, it is, because it's about survival at the end of the day. And if you think that you're not going to make it by being different or sharing or whatever, then you just don't do it. And therefore you don't grow. You don't evolve. You don't, you just don't, you don't get a chance to show who you really are.
That's deep. We're going deep now.
I know.
We're going like scientific. I've just written survival equals conforming, but conforming equals going ignored.
Yes.
Okay. I'm only writing these for our Instagram, for Honest Designers.
I was I remember watching a video with PewDiePie, the old biggest channel on YouTube, and he was talking about how he got to a point where he was really unhappy with the content he was putting out, but the stuff he wanted to do wasn't growing his channels. But if he did the stuff that people wanted, he wasn't winning either, because he was doing stuff he didn't want to do. And so you're left in this, no-win situation.
No man's land. Yeah.
And so, but then, what results is that you just do the stuff you want to do, and you put your personality, and you may lose some followers or subscribers, whatever they may be, but the energy it takes to do stuff that you really don't enjoy doing is a lot more than doing stuff you do over a long period of time to build it up. Because I know that, like for me, I was really struggling when I worked for other agencies where I had people above me, is that I was designing for their taste rather than what I thought was the best for the client, or what was good in my taste. And I found that really hard, because I couldn't be totally myself, because it was like, well, they're not going to like that. I'm going to have to do it this way because they like that sort of style, they like that sort of font. And that was pretty tricky doing it that way. So that was like another reason to sort of go freelance, because I wanted that creative freedom that comes, obviously, you want to do the best thing for the client, but your own personality is put into every project you do, whatever that may be. And that only comes with you making the decisions, I suppose, which is not that helpful if you're working for a design. But that was what I felt for myself, and what I struggled with.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
But even if you are stuck, if I can call it stuck, in that situation where you don't have the creative freedom, that's why it's so important to have, that side thing that ignites you and gets you excited. And it's that thing that you can share, that you should be sharing freely, because before you know it, I mean, look at Ian, before you know it, you might be getting a job because of the stuff that you enjoy, and you can leave the agency. So that's why, another reason why you should be sharing the stuff that you love doing.
That's how procrastination got me a better job.
That's the title of your first book, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh,
no, I will never get it out because I just procrastinate too much.
Get a ghostwriter. You just come up with the title, there, do the rest.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so what else can people do to overcome a fear of sharing? I know in terms of what I was talking about, like, it's the other side of fear. Small steps can help. So if you're really terrified of anyone seeing your work, then show it to a friend or a family member, rather than going 10 steps ahead and like posting it in a really harsh forum where people are going to give really critical feedback. That'll be more terrifying. So share it with a friend first, and when you get used to sharing it with friends, maybe share it with a small audience in a nice setting on your social media or whatever, and then put it in front of a wider, more critical audience. And you can kind of just level up over time. But I think you just have to start by taking small steps to overcome little uncomfortable moments.
Definitely. And if you have the stomach for it, you could even go all out your first time and share it on every platform you can think of just to get the worst under your belt.
Oh no,
Um,
trial by fire.
well, I mean, if I think about it, I was petrified when I'd never shown anybody other than Cliff my fine art paintings. Other than my mom and my sister and whatever, which we all know doesn't really count. um, so yeah, I decided to exhibit at a place, at some kind of flea market. I was petrified, and for me, that was like a huge step. But once I did it, then everything after that just seems so much easier. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on how quickly you want to get past that stage, because it is a stage, isn't it?
It certainly is. You've
Mm.
you've just you made me think back to going on a forum for artists, and I used to really like drawing and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And when I was at school, and I started trying to learn digital painting, and it was really hard, like really,
it
really
is
hard.
hard.
I remember I didn't even have a tablet. I was like doing it with a mouse, which is not ideal.
Oh, my
Um,
word, Tom.
so
That's
this is back in the
brave.
day.
Yeah.
And I did a portrait of like some random guy to test out digital painting, and put it on this forum asking for advice and sharing it. And it was like the first piece I
Ouch.
shared, and it looked slightly like a kind of deformed carrot with facial features on it. It was like I was trying to go for realistic, and it just looked like a sort of freakishly hideous cartoon. And I remember this is like incredibly talented guy just responded like quite nicely, given the context, and was like, "Here's a link to like some anatomy lessons." Basically, so be gone with your little carrot man. And it was like a bit disheartening in the moment, but I'm thinking back now, and it's kind of like funny and a bit embarrassing, but like really it's not that bad in the scheme of things what
It's
happens.
not.
It's not like
It's
the end of
not.
your world. It's just something
No.
to look back on.
And if you think about it, that could have been the kick up the butt that you needed.
Mm.
You could have been kind of like plodding along and thinking that you were okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, somebody, as you said, somebody you admired actually told you, well, buddy, you got a long way to go. You need that. You need to hear that sometimes.
100%. And
Mm.
as it was, I never took the anatomy lessons, and I never progressed my digital painting. I just gave up and I moved on to other things.
Oh, no. Okay. Shame, Tom. Were you traumatized after that?
Yeah, I think I still am. I need a hug now. Just recalling it.
Goes
Aw.
home and cries every evening.
Yeah, no, it's fine, guys. I'm over it. I'm so over it. I don't even care at all.
Oh, dear.
I was listening to a podcast who had one of our favourite book authors, Austin Kleon, on the Show Your Work and Still Like an Artist podcast.
Right. Yeah.
And he was talking about how that he sometimes gets stuck up on, because he does these poems where he blacks out loads of letters in an article and just leaves a few random words sort of popping out, and that becomes his piece. And he was like, one day he was like, this one doesn't really, it's not that good. I don't know whether I should post it. And he was like, oh, might as well. I need to do something for the day. And so many people were like, this is this is one of the best ones you've ever done. And it's so opinion based on whether your work is what people think of your work, and that can vary, that you just need to put it out there, because the more you put out there, these small little, like you say, small little steps, small little opportunities, the more chance of people finding it. And like for me, sometimes the ones that get me the jobs aren't the ones that get the likes. So
Yeah.
I've done stuff that was like just experimental, and I got a job. Someone like a company said, "Oh, I really like what you did there. Could you do something similar for us?" And that was just me playing around with an effect or something. Not many people liked it, but it was weird that it got a job from it. So
Yeah.
it's, you don't know. There's no formula for that happening. It's just about consistency, consistent posting, not worrying. I worry about the likes and worry about the interaction and what people think, but it doesn't, I suppose, stop me from posting. The only thing that stops me from posting, where I just literally my brain doesn't work and I can't think of an idea, that stops me more than the fear of what other people are going to think.
Yeah.
Because I suppose they're never going to like everything you do. They're not
No.
going to like always the new stuff you try, but you have to try that. And you know, for me, I respect other people for doing that, trying new things. Like you know, Radiohead, the band Radiohead. I used to be a really big fan, and I really appreciate they were experimental band. They were trying new things, but after they're like, OK Computer, it went downhill for me. But they're in a place where they're probably happy doing what they're doing. And the thing is, you're going to lose some fans if you try new stuff and you want to do more of what really makes you set you on fire.
Yeah.
But the problem is sometimes it doesn't. You know, commercial stuff is never always the stuff that you really sets you on fire. Do you know what I mean? It's
Did you know that Brown Eyed Girl is one of Van Morrison's most hated songs that he's ever done?
I did.
And everyone loves it.
Yes, it's weird. Because I was going to say that, but because Ian, you were saying, you know, you just got to post it anyway, and because you don't know what people are going to like. Sometimes the creator can be wrong in terms of what they think is good. Like you could really hate your piece of something that you've done, and you think it's like a load of real, you know, dog's turd, but maybe it isn't. You know, that's your opinion, and you could be completely off the mark because you have some weird stuff going on in your mind. So yeah, I think you got to do it anyway.
And it's the reason why, like, you know, you like certain clothes. You know, you don't pick everything. You don't go into a store and go, I like it all. You know, there's going to be people who like big neck jumpers like you're wearing today, and there's going to be people who are like, oh, well, I like his hoodies. You know, and that's why we're all different. And you can't. If you try, I think there's another quote. I just full of quotes today.
You're standing in for Dustin.
Bring it on.
If you try and please everyone, you please no one.
Yeah.
And so, and the same with the work. If you are aiming to try and please everyone, you're not going to do anything. Whereas if you just like, okay, this really sets me on fire, I'm going to post it because I know there's going to be a small portion of my audience or a small portion out there who are going to love this, but there's going to be a bigger portion that may not love it and just not really.
And you know, the thing is, when I have situations like that, and I'm kind of like umming and ahhing, you know, all those fears that we're talking about, I also ask myself, do I like it? Because if I like it, then that's kind of like the biggest tick. You know, if you're umming and ahhing, if you're on the fence whether you should share it or not. So I think we forget that often we must share or do it anyway because we're enjoying it, and it's not always about, we've spoken about this a lot, it's not always about the likes and you know, pleasing everyone, but yeah, if you're having fun, isn't that cool? That's good enough.
I think that's nail on the head for how to make sharing easier, though. What you guys have just distilled down to is, if you are geeking out about what you're creating and you're on fire about what you're creating, it's going to be so much easier to share it because you feel passionate about it. Whereas if you're self-guessing it and trying to fit someone else's mold, of course you're going to be hesitant about sharing it with the world because it won't be coming from a place of true passion.
Yeah, and if people don't get it, don't just discard the facts and think that it's garbage again. You know, just because other people didn't get it doesn't mean that it's bad. You know, there's so many artists who spent their whole lives never getting recognition, and only once they were dead did the world catch a wake up. So I don't know.
That sucks. I always think that must suck.
Sucks, doesn't it?
Honestly, you got no idea that you're like a genius that the world loves.
I know.
You just got a hard time.
It's like you want to wake the guy up and go, "Hey, buddy, do you know that
you're doing
well?"
all right.
Okay, here's I don't know if it's an analogy but you know, if you've got something you're passionate about, and maybe it's quite not niche, I suppose niche,
out
or
there,
a specific
or left field, or
thing that you there is going to be an audience out there because we're connected to the whole world. You know, there's billions of people, but the thing is that, you know, there's only a few people who connect with a lot of the world at the same time, and they're, you know, those ones are on a different level. But for you, it's constantly putting stuff out there until you reach them. Those people are out there, they're searching the internet for stuff they like, and you're
Yeah.
providing the stuff they like. They're not, you know, it's not going to be one post, suddenly they found it. It's going
No,
to be, you know, because it takes a while,
it
you know,
does.
for your stuff to filter through the internet. So, you know, if I put something on Pinterest, it'll take a while for that to filter through and maybe pop up. If it's something that someone likes, you know, people are searching, you know, the way that Google sort of catalogs everything, you know, you have to just keep putting it out there and letting it sort of like a bit like when you're making bread, you put in the
Yeast.
yeast, and it's only a small patch, but it, you know, but you have to let it knead through and filter through, and it's that patience of posting and then, you know, putting it through and just keep doing that, and then finally you find that it sort of pops up here and there when people are searching, and you
Mm.
suddenly get, you know,
A
a new
beautiful loaf
member.
of bread.
Yeah, and yeah, and lots of loaves of bread. You know, you start getting more loaves of bread that are hungry for your bread.
Exactly.
So
But
yeah,
it's so, you know what? I was just thinking while you were saying that, it's funny how, Tom, and you made me think of your triangles that you always draw.
Like my triangles.
Yeah. So the pop culture group is huge, right? So it's the top of the triangle, and if you're servicing that kind of type of person by the work that they want to see, I think their interaction is, I mean, we might have spoken about this before, you know, their interaction is going to be short-lived and quick. But the more niche you go and the more kind of like you drill down to being yourself, I think their interaction, the people get less, but I think the interaction gets stronger. You know, and their kind of loyalty and commitment to your work gets stronger. So I don't know. I'd rather be kind of that end than that end.
Did you see what I posted yesterday, kind of on this topic on my Instagram?
No.
So it was talking about niching down, and I was saying how the bigger you get in a lot of cases, it's really kind of disheartening to know you're only going to appeal to a small section of your audience with your work or your content.
Mm-hmm.
Because like now we've got quite a big audience at Design Cuts, but I know all the different demographics within that and the different types of people with totally different interests. There might be some that are like just into photography and others that are into hand lettering or graphic design and all these different areas. So, you know, when you put out something about one of those things, the majority of people probably won't care, and only that demo will. And I think, how refreshing is it to actually be in a niche where everything you put out is going to resonate with your audience?
Exactly.
And that's so nice, because if you're like, I think the example I gave was if you're the 1950s retro design person, you can just post that all day long, and every single one of your fans knows what to expect and loves it.
And they're going to love it.
Yeah, it's like where you expand and suddenly you're doing 1970s and 2000s and all of that because you're trying to grow and appeal to more people. Suddenly when you post something, 75% are like, nah, not for me. And that's where it gets trickier. And I thought of you, Ian, as a great example for someone who's got a really big audience, but it feels very focused still because they're all there for your style of lettering. And you seem to hit the sweet spot where you've basically got 250,000 people or whatever it is now, and you'll put out a lettering piece and they all want to see it. And that's quite a rare thing.
It is a rare thing. You're a unicorn, Ian.
Just without a horn.
That sounds bad.
Yeah, it does sound bad. That's not something you should be admitting.
Yeah,
Ian.
we'll get you some oysters, buddy. That's fine.
That's so funny. Carry on. Sorry, Ed, go first.
No, you know when you say to someone, don't think about kangaroos, and all they can think about is kangaroos.
Okay, so in terms of sharing, we've all agreed it's difficult, it's scary, but it's worthwhile, and we've sort of pondered some tips of how to make it easier and how to share. Can we touch a little bit more on what can come from sharing? So I know we touched on like you might put something out that you're not that fussed by, but it could blow up, etc. Ian, you just touched on almost laying this web out of like every piece you share kind of, spreads out like the yeast in a bit of bread, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What other benefits are there to sharing? I think for me, consistency would be one. People respond to consistency. They're like kind of
Yeah.
tuning in regularly and knowing what to expect.
And I think if you're sharing, at least I think in my case, what I do for a living, if I share like a product in progress, like the people give feedback, you can sense like, okay, this is going well, they're digging it. Some people might even make suggestions, and they don't even know that like they've just made this awesome suggestion to add to the pack. So it can also benefit giving you clues on what people are actually liking specific to the thing that you're creating.
So it helps
And give
guide
you
it.
direction. Yeah.
Like we've all talked about, in fact, Ian, stealing from you here, you've talked about these paths opening up, and they're not being so much pressure of where to end up, because you're just exploring. Oh, I'll try that. Oh, okay, that looks interesting, and I'll follow down there. But if you're not moving, you can't go down any paths, and the only way to move is to do and to share. I don't know if I've given this example before, but I had a friend who was an incredibly talented musician, very, very talented singer, and it really frustrated me because he was the quintessential creative and artist that was just kind of racked by self-doubt and like, oh, but no, I can't put it out there, and it's no good. Yet every single person without fail that heard it was like, that's incredible. It's like, oh no, but I can't possibly. And you just want to shake those people. And it's such a common thing with creatives. I remember people doing art at school. I don't know if it's done for attention or you're genuinely like that insecure. And I've been guilty of it myself, but it's always like, oh no, it's rubbish. No, I couldn't possibly share that. People are never like, look at this, I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
And I remember looking at my friend and just thinking, like, Christ, in the years you've been sat there like moping and doubting yourself, if I had your voice, I'd have like my 17th album out by now. Like, I would want to share that gift with the world. Yeah. But yeah, I think that sums up what it looks like not to share. You just sit in this little private bubble and the world never gets to know your talent or potential talent.
Yeah. I think you've also kind of reminded me of something that I always say about people who, why people should exercise. I know this is kind of off a field topic, but it's the same thing. Like the reason I think you should exercise is because there's a lot of people out there who would absolutely kill to be able to walk or run or whatever because they're wheelchair bound or they, I don't know, have a disability. So it's almost like you have this obligation not only to yourself but to those that can't. And I think it's the same with being creative. I think because you have the ability to, I don't know, draw or whatever, I think it's your responsibility to share and share your gift and help others get to where they want to get, It's not just for yourself. It should be, should be more than that.
100%. Lisa, if you were jumping on these calls and we knew all of the talent that you possess and you were like, oh no guys, I'm rubbish, like I'm not going to get it out there, it would be so frustrating because I would kill to be able to draw like you, and like anyone would. Like,
yeah, I mean it's difficult to as a human being, to show what you can do because, as I said, all the things that you're scared of. But at the same time, I think it's an obligation that we have to be the best we can be at something and share and help, others along the way get there. That's what I think. Like you, Ian. I mean, you show so much of your stuff, like how you create what you create, how to draw an S, how to do an N, how to, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to take the time to do that. And I think it's stuff like that if all of us could kind of just give a little bit more of ourselves, would be cool.
And the thing is, if you think, oh, I've got nothing I can, if you've got nothing to share, then just pick up a book and learn something and then share little elements of those things that you've learned. Do a course and share little elements that you found helpful.
Yeah,
there's always things that people can pick up on that, because the thing is, even though we're connected to the world, you've got Google, right? You can search Google straight away from your phone. People don't know how to do some simple things. that you could, and especially in design world, there's things that, like, I did a post where I did something in InDesign just because of I'm used to InDesign. I worked in it every day for the however, like 14 years in a row. But some other people were used to doing that same thing in Illustrator, and so it's just like, well, if you spent a long time in one program, then teach people who don't know that program. And there's always going to be little tips and tricks you can use. Where it's great to create things from scratch. Come up with good ideas for posts. Just maybe give yourself a schedule. You got Monday could be a tip, Tuesday could be a finished piece of work, Wednesday could be a process of a bit of work, Thursday can be like recommending a course or something like that. I don't think I think we get a thing, I just got to share this perfect piece of work. I think it can be anything you can that is you consistently posting, and making sure that does it add value to people, does it entertain people, does it inspire them, does it make them think, all those little elements. Just choose one of them, and just you can give yourself a little box full of a mental block. I've got this I can share, I've got that I can share, and just building up. So then it takes the sort of stress out of it, and or you just set yourself a challenge for like we do with the 100-day challenge. You just find a list of 100 words, you're going to illustrate them, or do the 36 days of type. Get set up for that. There's sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just by doing that, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, I mean, the messages I get about, just from me doing my 100-day challenge that I did, and how inspired other people, that's like incredible. Like, it makes me so happy to hear that. And like, I didn't know that was happening, and so you don't really know what's going on out there, and you could be really influencing somebody super positively. But you can't do that if you don't share. So you have to share.
And to add to that, if you're one day into learning something, you have something to teach to the person on day 0.
100%, Tom.
And
Absolutely.
in many ways, that can be more helpful, or certainly equally as helpful as the expert, because you're closer to them. So if I started learning lettering and I'm like 8 years behind Ian, if I practiced every day, so he's obviously way, way better than I am, but I'll be making the mistakes rather that someone makes on day 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Exactly.
That Ian, you might have even forgotten people make because it was so long ago for you, and you're now so refined in your style. So as great a teacher as you are, that might be more relatable for someone who's literally picked up a pen for the first time. And so I wouldn't find it daunting and be like, well, I've got nothing to share, I'm going to be a much worse teacher than all the experts out there, because you will be relatable and you will have something to pass down. As long as you're humble about it and honest about it, and you're saying, look, I'm not an expert, but it's day 3 now, and yesterday I made these mistakes all day, and I've just realized from learning from people better than me how to fix this basic mistake. So you can skip over that now in 10 minutes instead of spending a day like I did with trial and error. Like, you can always share stuff.
And the thing is that if you're just starting out, then you just document your journey and your process of going through that stages. If you're already at a place where you've learned something, then you just teach those stages. So there's never a place someone gets to where they're like got nothing to share in terms of what they've learned, and you've got the experience, you've got all these different elements that make up your life that other people will be interested in if it helps them. Obviously we have a wave of like people doing like vlogging and stuff like that. It's just not that interesting. That's because they don't share anything that adds value. Whereas, I suppose as designers, teaching someone a keyboard shortcut, that's, it's a simple thing, but could save someone loads of time. And people love just short bits of information, we all have stuff to share, and it doesn't have to just be amazing work all the time.
No.
But sharing will help us to practice doing that, and it might produce, I'm embarrassed by the stuff I post last week, and but I have to go. I just have to keep posting because I know that I'm going to look back and I'm gonna be like, oh, that's a bit of a shocker. But if I hadn't, that bit of shocker that someone else didn't think was shocking and thought was actually really good, and got me some work, it's just
there's no shortcuts. Yeah,
no,
not only are there no shortcuts, but there's no end game. It's
True.
not like we want to fast forward to this end point, because that's not the end point. That's going to keep moving. So we are constantly on the journey. The end point is the journey. So you're already at your end point. You're exactly where you should be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're all learning.
Yep.
Still all learning.
I mean, I think that's why, Ian, if you like me and Tom, I haven't removed any of my old stuff, like from my Instagram. It's still there, even though I look at it and I just want to die. But I want people to see that, we all start somewhere, and it's important for, just to show that you're human.
Yeah.
I got shown a video by one of my team today, and it was from right around the start of Design Cuts, and we were trying to hire for a role that I barely even remembered, kind of thing. And I was sat there with this ridiculous hair, looking incredibly young, with possibly the worst fashion sense I've ever seen. And I was just looking back and thinking, oh God, that's so embarrassing.
And that was, 2 years ago?
2 weeks ago. It wasn't that long ago though. Yeah, it was literally about 4 years ago. And I was like, look at the state of me. The same thing goes for your work. But it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
If we hadn't gone through all that, none of us would be here now. Okay, so closing thoughts when it comes to sharing. What have we got? A little 30-second tip for the listeners.
Just do it despite yourself.
Despite yourself or to spite yourself?
No, despite. Let's clarify.
Okay.
Do it despite your fears and your anxieties.
Okay, I like it. Ian?
Feel the fear and share it anyway.
Yes.
Ooh.
It's just like a bit of a
that
tweak
got
on
a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can top those two. They're very profound. I would say that, like I touched on earlier, with this stuff, confidence and improvement lies the other side of fear. So it's pretty much what Ian said in a very slightly different way.
Less t-shirt worthy.
No, it's not. That's rubbish compared to yours. What was yours again?
Mine's
fear. Just feel it on the flip side.
Well, it's based off of the feel the fear and do it anyway, but feel the fear and share it anyway.
Ooh, okay. No, I do like that the more I hear it. Yeah, let's go with that. I'll just say Ibid. what he said. Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I'm sure next week we are going to have all four of us back. We did miss dear, profound, well-read, intellectual Dustin.
Curious George.
Yeah,
curious George himself.
Yeah.
Well, that was lovely
we need
to get
we need to get a sound effects board so we can just press, I'm curious to know when we...
Boing. Yeah. Like really cheap radio DJs. Anyway, on that note, we're out of here.
See you later.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that you're feeling more confident to share your creative work with the world. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean so much to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.